Simon Stokes. How are you, mate? It's been a while since we've seen you. A lot's happened, hasn't it? I mean, you're up in your studio in, is it Glasgow or Edinburgh? Sorry, I should.
We're in Glasgow here. Yep, we're at the studio. This is where we have Subsign Academy, my wee music school. We've got my own personal studio. We've got Instro modular synthesizers are based here. So yeah, there's been loads going on.
So, also, I mean, Ableton have asked us to get together with you because you've done some stuff with us before. We had a look at the CV tools. We've had a look at kind of all kinds of stuff with Ableton over the years. And now with Push, we call it Push 3, but the official branding is Push. Push 3 has enabled quite a lot of changes in the way that people sort of interact with the whole process, because obviously in the computer you can start your ideas, and now with Push 3 we can, in standalone mode, we can start to bring that into a live environment, and that's kind of the focus of what we're going to look at today, right?
That's right, yeah, because it's the first time that you've been able to get away from having to have a laptop on stage when you're performing. So as Petrichor, which is my moniker on Soma Records, I've released a bunch of albums with them and a lot of singles, and have toured all around Europe and parts of the world as a live act as well. And I've always had to have the laptop on stage as I'm performing. So this has been a bit of a dream come true for me as an artist, to actually be able to get up on stage, still use hardware, software and everything, but control it all without having to rely on a laptop in like a hot, sweaty club, which is where I normally perform, basically.
So what you're going to show us now, I mean, you've got presumably a session that's starting in live, and then we're going to move it over. So what is the music that we're looking at?
Well, that's it. So I've just been working on a track recently with a cellist. So one of my friends who was a student here, I was teaching her music production in my music school. She's also a concert cellist and has been performing all over the place. So we've been working together, trying to integrate kind of electronic music with cello. We've got this track to like a point where it's fleshed out. We've got an arrangement, we've got a structure to it. But now we're thinking about like, how could we take this track and take it on stage, either with cello, or if Justina's not able to be there, then with just me performing it. So I thought this would be quite a good example for showing how you actually get from this project into a live performance project and then into a project on Push.
Okay, so let's take a look at the source session then, right?
Yeah, so I've got, this is the project that I've been working on. So there's lots of tracks in here. As with any project that you're normally working on, there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of tracks. Let's just listen to a little bit just so we can get a feel for what it sounds like. So this track builds with cello all the way through. I should say, with the live version of this, we're not looking to recreate the track exactly. We're looking to kind of like create a version of it. This is club music, essentially. So we're not looking to play back the track in its exact same form. Right. What we're going to do is take elements, have some things live that we can play on Push, have some things playing live on the modular, have the drum machine involved as well. And that way we should be able to like create a nice kind of performance, essentially, where you're hands-on with it. So inside the project here, I'll just put a wee loop on this section. What I've done is I've collapsed down all of the tracks in the project into groups.
Right.
And these groups are going to be the same for every track you ever make. You kind of have to decide this at the start of creating a live set, is what elements do you have in your projects and how can you perform them live? Every controller pretty much has 8 knobs and 8 faders on it. Push has this kind of these 8 knobs on it with a mixer view with 8 kind of mixer views on it. Yeah. So you kind of want to make sure that when you're working in your live set, it makes sense to keep everything in kind of 8 sections.
Yeah.
So this is the first thing we do. If we look at the project here, we've got 8 groups. So in the first one, I've got my kick and sub bass together. These I find that whenever I want to take them out of the project, I want my kick and bass line pretty much to come out at the same time, all the time. So I keep them grouped together. I've got synth part here, which is running on wavetable, which I'd quite like to play live in my project. Like, I'd like to be able to tweak this wavetable in real time as it's going. So I need to bear that in mind. I've got another synth part here, which is recorded from one of my synths. I think it was the Hydra synth that was just playing.
Nice choice.
So that'll be a playback track. We've got all the cello, which is going to be a playback thing at the moment.
Yeah, sounds quite processed.
Could be on
so that's
stage.
that, yeah.
So yeah, and the track kind of drops at this section here. Let's just go play from here. There's a big bass line in the middle, which was recorded off the modular synth. So I would love to be able to trigger that from Push live on stage and play the modular while I'm there, because it's that kind of like interaction that when the audience can see you doing stuff and hear it coming out at the same time, there's like a real connection in your live performance with the audience who are watching.
Also introduces a bit of jeopardy. We always like a bit of jeopardy in a live performance.
A bit of jeopardy. And modular is particularly jeopardous because like you pull one cable and then you're in a dark, sweaty club and it's really smoky and you've had a few too many drinks and you're trying to work out which cable you've pulled out. And it can go chaotic really quickly, but that's part of the fun, isn't it? So we can handle that. But yeah, so if you look here, I've got 8 parts. Kick, synth A, synth B, cello, main bass, percussion, and a couple of things of hats.
Yeah.
And I've just collapsed all of the tracks of my project into those categories. So yeah, if I want to start bouncing these out, I'm going to solo my kick and sub, select a wee loop that's playing. Now, you don't need to bounce out the whole track. We just need a loop. Like, I mean, these are probably only a bar long, so I could probably actually just take a very small loop and just render it out. File, export audio, export it out, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go through each of those groups and just bounce out the audio if they're playback parts. And if there's something that I want to be able to get control over on Push, like for example, this wavetable part, I'm just gonna right-click and export that MIDI clip and bounce that out as a separate clip.
Right.
So that means that I'm essentially gonna have 8 different parts. I'm gonna have the entire track, but collapsed down into 8 different parts, which I can then bring into my live set. So I'm going to show you the live set, how that looks just now.
So this is the source, this is the sort of the staging session where you're just kind of getting things organised, ready for the live set, right?
Yeah, and it's really important you have the same process for every single track. So once you've chosen those categories, like I've got my kick and bass, synth A, synth B, every track you collapse it down into those same 8 categories. And that means that when you bring them into your live project here, you can very easily switch between different kicks and basses from different tracks. You can bring in percussion from different elements as well. And this is what it looks like with just a single track in the project. So if we go through each of these, and let's just solo out the kick and bass here a sec. And this is just a simple audio loop that I've just rendered out from there. This is one I made earlier, of course. And the synth part, I've brought in the MIDI clip and I've got wavetable running here. So those 8 parts are all running in here nice and live now. So if I play the whole track together,
it's kind of like bouncing stems, but some of them are MIDI and some of them are audio. I mean, I suppose the one thing that to probably also mention is, this is a way of working. There are so many different ways you could do it, because if your track maybe didn't have a whole load of stuff, it might be something you could just push straight over to the hardware and not have to go to this. But if you've got lots of elements, it makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, you can do it so simply. If you're just playing one track at a time, for example, you could just like bang it straight onto Push and it'll work fairly simply. But if you want to create a long, say in my world, we're creating a long set that's maybe an hour long and is continuous, and you're morphing between your different tracks.
So there'll be a master session, so a master session.
Yeah, so what you're doing is doing a bit of preparation in advance so that you get lots of control later on down the line.
And you can reorder the tunes and all of that stuff.
Yeah, with very little that can go wrong almost. Like you're kind of like doing some of the preparation in advance so that when you get there to the club, you can just perform. And later on, we start to introduce a little balance between safety of having everything prepared and spontaneity of like being able to actually jam or like play on a synthesizer or something. So yeah, at its core, this whole track is playing back just over those 8 parts. What I've done is just gone through this and just simply MIDI mapped it up to a controller. This could be any controller. In my instance, I'm just using this TR-8S here. So with the TR-8S, which is a drum machine from Roland, I can just simply map up faders to control different parts. So like I can bring my kick and bass in. These first 8 parts, I've colored them nicely so that they correspond with my live project.
So we should reiterate, at the moment we're talking about this is running in the computer, right? Or this is not on the hardware yet.
This is the preparation, and then we're going to ping it over to the standalone and show how we can then do all of this, but without a computer at all. So yeah, each one of those tracks just has, for example, if you look at the kick and bass track here, I've just built a little rack inside Ableton. This is one of the things that Ableton's amazing, or Live's amazing at, is just building up little racks that let you control the parameters. Right. So I've got little glitchy things, I've got a little fade out kind of, and it's all in time. So just really simply, like by just having those 8 things that I can bring in and out and add little effects and things to them at the same time while I'm playing around, you just really quickly get something that you can actually create a whole arrangement for this track without like having to, without having anything more than just a fairly basic loop for it. So does that make sense so far?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so I agree. The preparation is key. So say, I mean, so what's the next step? Is the next step then to ping this over, or are we going to do some more preparation work on the session?
No, we can pretty much ping it over now. Just note that on this track here, this is a wavetable which is running live, and I've just mapped up a couple of controls that I can tweak on it. So we solo this one. Let's hear this on its own. Just tweaking around with filters, I can apply a bit of feedback to the echo.
And that's again using the TR-8S as a MIDI controller? Or...
Yeah, that's just using it as a MIDI controller. That's fine. That's all it's doing. But the key thing is here that all of these mappings and all of this stuff that you're doing in advance here on Inside Live in the computer, once you bring it across to Push and it's running standalone, those mappings are all persistent. So like all of this stuff will just work, no problem, once we move over to Push. So let's just do that for a second. So I'll show you the rest when we get across there. I've got a little track with the modular. That was the big main bass line in the middle of the track. Yeah. That's using CV Instrument, which we chatted about a while back now, but we've got a good video on going through how to use that with a modular or any other kind of control voltage instruments. But basically, this clip is going to be pinged out to the modular and brought back in. I should say, we're also running all of this through Push's built-in audio interface. So I'm not using any other interface. This is two things off of my stage that stressed me out before, was an audio interface which, if a USB cable got pulled or something like that, the whole thing just falls apart. And a laptop which would frequently overheat and cause problems in a club environment. Yeah. So you've got rid of all of that and you're just working with Push as the center of your universe, pinging out to all your different kind of devices and things. And that's the dream. So over here inside Live, if I come back, this is the project that we're looking at right now. I've just got it in my browser and I can just literally just drag that and just drop it straight onto Push. I've already got one on there, but this is an updated version, so I'll just overwrite it. And over Wi-Fi, it's just pinging that entire project as it is straight onto Push. and then I can swap Push into standalone mode, and that's us away from the computer now, and everything should just work.
That was the thing that was quite interesting when Jesse Terry came down to show us it. The fact that you've got, connected, so it's audio interface and controller, then flip into standalone mode. The connections are essentially the same. You're just kind of moving the the frontier, the ring fence from your computer to the sort of to Push itself. So it's really a one-click sort of scenario. That's really neat.
That's what I've noticed ever since I've had the standalone version of this. I keep thinking, I wonder if it could do that, and actually it can. And like everything, I've been like, I wonder if it can play the modular with very little latency or no noticeable latency live and process it through Live's effects. It can. And can it bring in the drum machine? Yep. You plug the drum machine in by one USB cable to send clock to it, bring the audio into one of it Push's inputs, and you can nudge that clock backwards and forwards just like you can inside the software. Like everything that you can do over there, you can do here as well,
right.
Like in terms of like live performance and working with hardware and things. And so far, I've just not found anything that I'm not able to do from directly within this.
So are we about to push the button? Are we going to get the magic moment where it goes into standalone mode? Is there a kind of, does it, I hope it has a fancy animation, otherwise it's going to be terribly disappointing.
So yeah, on Push, we can just click Start Standalone here. Would you like to start Push Standalone? Yes, go for it. Because I've already copied the files on, I come across to Open, and you can see the most recent set is at the top. That's my live set. Click the jog wheel, and without further ado, it's going to load that entire set as it is, complete with mappings, complete with hardware setups, complete with everything that we needed. So if I hit play now, we've got level coming out. All the mappings that I'd set up already are ready to go.
All right, so the TRA is just talking to Push in standalone mode via the same MIDI host connection, right?
Yeah, and it's working as a controller to help this. You could also be doing all of these levels from Push if you prefer. Like the levels are all here on the screen. You can play around with that. I just quite like physical faders, so it's quite nice to be able to use a mixture of stuff on the screen of Push and physical controls for some things. Because in a live set, you need to control a lot of stuff at the same time, particularly with electronic music. Often it's just you, a whole bunch of synthesizers, drum machines, things like that. And you need a good interface for that kind of lets you bring things in and out. And this is just the perfect setup for me. So there's some cello coming. So now you can see that that's all running nice, and the drum machine is plugged in by USB to Push,
right?
Which means that in our settings, in our MIDI settings here, we have all of our MIDI inputs and outputs. So the TR8S, you can see it there as an input. I can also see it as an output, and you can choose whether you're sending it clock or whether you're sending it notes or whether you're using the knobs and faders to record movements. And
so essentially the same. I mean, and can you MIDI hub it up so you could have more than one MIDI device connected in host mode, presumably? So you could have another.
Yeah, so you can actually have a hub in there. I think they said up to 10 or something.
Right.
I mean, there's a ridiculous number of devices that you can have plugged in. But in this way, it means that I'm sending clock to the drum machine so that when I press play on Push, you can see that the drum machine also begins. You'll notice that there.
All right, so you could actually add voices from the drum machine in real time as well.
Yeah, and inside, if I come back to my tracks here, I've created a audio track on Push, and onto this audio track, I've set it to use one of the external inputs here on the back of Push, and the drum machine is just plugged into that input. So when I bring in elements, let's bring the percussion out from my live set and bring some in from the drum machine. Do you hear how it's just like
locked
perfectly in time?
Just remind me, how many audio inputs have we got on Push itself?
So there's two inputs on the back.
Yeah.
but there's 2 analog inputs, but there's also ADAT in and out.
So you could get
so in the studio, I use that quite a lot as well. ADAT is an often forgotten thing particularly amongst more amateur producers, that whenever you've got an ADAT optical connection, if you've got an input, an ADAT input, then you can add 8 extra inputs essentially over a single cable into
and it'll
device.
handle those 10 live inputs, up to 10 live inputs without any
and it's just perfectly in time. Everything works nicely, it's all synced up. And then we've got, when you're working with something like the modular synth or whatever, I'm using CV Instrument to kind of send out notes to that. So that's sending out control voltage, which the modular can kind of read. So if I play this scene here, this has got some modular stuff going on. So this is notes coming from a clip here and getting pinged out to the modular system, which is then playing sound, and that's coming back in through the channel here and getting some effects put onto it. And so there's a bit of echo. You hear that if I'm playing with echo here.
Nice. And you're using because the Push has also got CV and gate outputs, hasn't it? So you can assign.
Well, that's it. Yeah. So there's two pedal connections on Push. So you can use them either for like a sustain pedal or something to start and stop the recording on Push or whatever you like, or you can use them as 2 times 2 CV out. So each one is a dual CV out on there. So I've just got a stereo splitter on here, which means that this single pedal 1 output is pinging out, CV and gate, like voltage per octave and gate control to the modular. And then I've still got another one, which I'm not even using right now, which you could use to maybe send out LFOs or kind of like any kind of other control voltage that you want, maybe just random voltages that you can use to do different things within your system. So if you are kind of like a hybrid worker like me, where you have some hardware, some software, and you like to kind of dance the line between the two, then this is why the standalone one just really, really works, I think. So yeah, that's all coming back in with just no perceptible latency at all. In fact, I could go to Push here and actually play the modular. I've got a bit much echo on this. I tend to do that quite a lot. It's great for live stuff because it means if you've got a bunch of synths and a bunch of different stuff going on, you just don't have to think too much. You could just really play this while it's going, So if we've got, let's just go back to the top part here and go to the modular. So I could actually. Even record something if I quite like what I'm doing. I've captured that and it's now playing it. This is all playing on hardware. And you can see that you can, so it just gives you this like flexibility. Like I was saying, that trying to get that line between spontaneity and safety, and being able to go off when everything's going well, being able to go off and just jam and play and try new ideas and things. Or if you just you're just not quite feeling it, you can just play your live set exactly as you prepared it and just kind of like work through it.
Well, of course, I mean, obviously there's a couple of things here, because obviously those pads now have got some serious MPE capabilities, so anything that can respond to that will work. But then presumably if you've done a blinder of a show and you came up with some really good additional stuff and you happen to record it, can you then just ping the session back into your computer and sort of then get back into that world if you wanted to get all tweaky and and really use the UI that you have?
Yeah, because like if I was to say I've added that wee clip now, if I was to just save this project now, so I just come to save, that's live set has been saved. So if I just come over to my project here, or if I come back to the computer, then just looking at Push here, I can see all the projects that are on my Push, including the latest version of the live set that we just did. Now I can either, if I wanted, I could drag that back into my library here and start working with it from that. Or you can actually even just sort of open it off of Push. It copies the files for you and creates a temporary project, which you can then work on. So there's different ways of doing it, but this way is quite nice because it just, you know that you're opening the right one and you're not copying lots of versions of it onto your...
That makes a load of sense, because particularly if you're in production rehearsals, which, you know, let's face it, this might be happening. You might go, we're playing live, we're doing it from here, and then you think, oh, actually, I just need to tweak a bunch of stuff that will be a bit quicker if I've got the UI, and then you're saving it straight back to the device. That makes a lot of sense in that sort of scenario.
Yeah, totally. And it feels kind of fluid, especially as you don't have to, you can do all of that over Wi-Fi as well. So you can just bring that across. You don't even need to necessarily plug Push back into your computer or anything. You can just kind of bring it across over Wi-Fi.
Is it a point-to-point Wi-Fi so you can connect to the, or do you need a sort of host network? You can create, if you create a ad hoc Wi-Fi from your laptop, for example, then Push will be able to join that. So you can do it on the back of the bus.
But you see how I've got the project, this is the project from Push there, is back on the computer. You can now make tweaks to it. Say, for example, we want to add something. Well, here's like a... So this is just a sound on Ableton Drift, which is... But this is fully MPE capable, really, really nice to use for live stuff. So say, for example, I've brought this across. Also, we should just note while we're at it that the clip that I created on my modular is there. Right. That's the one that I was playing live on Push. Yeah, so when we play a synth that's MPE capable on Push, then remember, we've not only got velocity sensitivity, we've also got XY control for adding dynamics. So you can slide. Which just gives you insane amounts of dynamic range, essentially, in synth sounds. So yeah, I'm just going to go and save this project so I can bring it back onto Push. So let's go into the live set we were creating. I'm just going to save over it because it's just basically the same project with a new element. And then once we've done that, we can just drag that project back onto Push, overwrite the one that was there, and then it comes across with any new elements that we've added. So this...
we are getting the kind of slightly foreshortened, because I mean, obviously, if this was massive and had loads of audio files and stuff, there would be a longer wait, presumably. Because will this stream files from disk, so it'll stream actual tracks. So if you have kind of long clips in there, it Push Standalone will, you know, you can have quite long stuff. It's not just limited to what stays in RAM. I've not yet encountered any situation where it's struggling to play anything back or anything. There are some kind of like audio settings. Again, I've not really had to tweak them much. Oh, I'm not in standalone mode right now. Let's just jump back to standalone. Yeah, I've not really had to tweak the audio settings. Mine runs very comfortably at a buffer of 128 at the moment, which is very fast. I think it's a few milliseconds. Feels like 4 or 5 milliseconds. Imperceptible to me when I'm playing hardware and things like that. It's not, it's not bothering me at all. And I've still not noticed any major issues. That's why I think preparing your set like we have been doing into something that's like neat and tidy, running back like audio clips where you can. It just all that kind of preparation in advance just means that your live set just runs really slick and fast, you know. So that's. I mean, I guess if you're running sort of 20 tracks of virtual instruments with MPE and loads of effects, there is going to come a point where it goes, yeah, no, I can't do any more. But I mean, planning for this is going to make makes the sense.
There'll definitely be, I'm sure there'll be a cutoff, but then you can just raise the buffer size a little bit if you want.
Go back and bounce it and then bring it back in again,
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so here we are in Push Standalone, and I can now just open up the live set. This is the one with the MPE sound in it. And we should find that I'll bring the modular out a sec. Yeah, and we should find, if I come along to the end where I put that track, there it is. Change levels a little, yeah. And now, of course, this is fully MPE, so let's bring some of the cello out a little.
Hey, nice bit of unison there. I was just going to say that, I mean, obviously this was a minor change, but say, for instance, you know, if your cellist said, oh no, I want to add a really couple of big cello parts and add to that, then this would be perfect. You know, you could go back to Ableton, or you could send her the session, she would record onto it, you bring it back and go, yeah, I'll just drop that in. I mean, all of this stuff is, that interchangeability is the kind of key thing, and the fact that you can to and fro it is what is really powerful here, right?
Yeah. And it's not about saying one or the other. It's about like having the option to work in this kind of fluid way with hardware on stage without relying on your laptop and things to where it's not about saying, oh, you don't ever want to use that, because there's some situations when you're recording a cello, you might want to sit and, you know, view it on the screen and edit it and all that kind of stuff. But it's about doing that, preparing it, bringing it across, and then you can just perform it in this kind of quite natural way, basically.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy who does a lot of live sound, and he was saying that he's seeing a lot more people showing up with Push 3s, you know, particularly in the EMOM thing, which is something that we've just done our own, and we do them quite regularly, and we see them quite a lot, where people could just sort of put together something quite small, and not to, you know, not like a full tour, but just go, I can put a 15-minute set together and turn it with my Push and a couple of synths, and we're off.
That's it. And it's like, I know quite a few people now who are, you know, we're getting to an age where, like, as an artist, it's good to have a few more strings to your bow, particularly when you're kind of climbing the ranks and maybe don't have a whole production team behind you. You can actually, I know quite a few people who are now shifting their live set off onto Push to run on the stage, and that actually frees up their laptop for running visuals, or like doing other things like audio reactive visuals that are very CPU intensive, would normally require 2 laptops on stage, for example.
That's a good point.
So you've got your main outputs on Push, which can go out to the PA, for example. And then we've also got a stereo headphone out, which you can assign individually. So for example, you could send a different mix of your project to the stereo outs of the headphones, and that could be going into a laptop to do like audio reactive visuals, for example, or you could use Max for Live devices in here to be able to trigger that kind of thing as well. I mean, it's super powerful. Like, it's great.
So, I mean, as we know, available now, there's the standalone version and the expanded, they call it. I don't know what pricing or availability is. I'm not going to ask you, because that's not really the focus of this thing. But it seems quite an interesting way of maybe moving into hardware. And I think as people are sort of trying to get away from the computer to a degree, it's actually gives you quite a lot of freedom as well, because then, like you said, you can focus on maybe your stagecraft or the other things. Because the thing I noticed just recently when I was doing a live thing, was my head is so in the technical stuff that when it starts to flip to creativity, it can be quite a challenging flip. It's left brain, right brain stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely. But like, live performance is more important than ever, really, as in terms of actually earning as an artist as well. And, you know, it is important to start thinking about how you can refine your sound into something that can be performed on a stage. If you're not already doing that, it's really is like your big earner as an artist these days. So like, any way that you can have to kind of make that a little more accessible and less reliable, the better. Yeah.
So Simon, it sounds like we're kind of pretty much at the point where we can wrap things up. And I think you're going to play a little bit out, as is customary. Presumably, we might see this this show up in a Petrichor live set sometime in the not too distant future as well.
100%. Yeah, that's what I love doing. I'll definitely be back on stage very soon.
Okay, folks. Well, thanks very much for watching. Thanks again to Simon for showing us. He's going to play us out now. We'll see you all again soon. Take care now.
You